read a story from right at the beginning of when Jesus was just stepping into his public ministry. So I want to set the scene. Jesus and his friends, they're heading into the city. But in Jerusalem, it was like the city. It wasn't like in Australia. This was the main place. People made pilgrimages to this place. And in the middle of the city was the temple. And this place was glorious and wonderful. So they're heading to church, and that's the natural place they want to go. And it was the place that God dwelt on earth. So the reason people made a pilgrimage there was because they had the same desire we have. They wanted to meet with the God of universe. They wanted to experience his presence. But it was so present then that it was behind a curtain in the Holy of Holies. And only once a year could the priest who'd cleansed himself go through that curtain with a series of sacrifices. That's how he could meet with the presence of God. And so let me pick up the story. It says this in John 2. In the temple area, as he went in, he saw merchants selling cattle and sheep and doves for sacrifices. He saw dealers at tables exchanging foreign money. Okay, but let me explain what's happening. All these people on pilgrimage, and some savvy entrepreneur is like, right, I see a business opportunity here. There's a lot of foreigners coming into town. They want to meet with God. Maybe they haven't brought the wrong sacrifices. I can have them ready. I can have a table set out right at the front of the temple. Are you sure you have enough sacrifice ready right here today? We have cattle, sheep, and doves, half price for holiness on display. Kind of makes sense, right? You think they're just providing for people. They're readying them to meet with God. But that's not how Jesus sees it. He is absolutely furious. So let me pick up the story again. He made a whip from some ropes and chased them all out of the temple. He drove sheep and cattle, scattered the money changers' coins all over the floor, and turned over the tables. Then going over to the people who sold doves, he told them, "Get those things out of here. Stop turning my Father's house into a marketplace." And his disciples remembered this prophecy from the scriptures. Passion for God's house will consume me. I want you to stop and consider from a moment what happened between those two events, from the walking in, ready to experience the temple, to the whip cracking, table flipping Jesus. What happens? He goes outside, he grabs some rope, and he starts plaiting. And he keeps plaiting. Because to make a whip takes rather a long time. This is planned, premeditated, righteous anger over a situation that makes Jesus' blood boil. And perhaps not that surprisingly, it kind of annoyed the temple leaders who responded this way. The Jews were upset. I love when the Bible massively understates things. The Jews were upset that a guy had come in and flipped tables and cracked a whip in the middle of church. They asked, "What credentials can you present to justify your behavior?" Jesus answered, "Tear down this temple, and in 3 days I'll put it back together." But they were indignant. "It took 46 years to build this temple, and you're going to rebuild it in 3 days?" But Jesus was talking about his body as the temple. Jesus says, tear down the temple. He calls his own body the temple. And it sounds obscure, but I want you to get something here. Because this story is one of only 6 that's repeated in every of the 4 Gospels. The other ones being like the birth, the baptism, the death, the resurrection. That time he fed 5,000 people on a couple of fish. And this story, it's important enough that it's in every single Gospel. Because in this moment, Jesus is reshaping how people meet the presence of God. Because it was his plan all along. I don't know about you, but I love chapter 1 of the Bible. God's original plan is a garden where he walks and talks with us. But because we like to do things in our own strength, maybe that's just me and Adam, we broke that system and he came up with the sacrificial system. But Jesus is back saying, I want to walk with you. I want to talk with you. And in Corinthians 15, it says Jesus was the second Adam. He was literally the second man who'd come to redefine how humans relate to the presence of God. Paul called our bodies the temple. Do you not know, he says in Corinthians, that you are God's temple and God's Spirit dwells in you. Your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. We are the temple of the living God. Does that blow your mind? It should, because Paul says it this way. It's a mystery, right? And he says the mystery in a nutshell is this: Christ is in you. God's presence walked in with you tonight. We don't need to turn up to church to experience God's presence anymore. Jesus is in us when we believe in him. Jesus said, I'm bringing the presence from the temple. I'm tearing the curtain that separates you from me, and I'm coming to live in your hearts. The problem is, when Jesus came, the marketplace came too. So tonight I want to take aim at the marketplace because this stuff gets me pretty angry. There's a particular candidate for the marketplace in our life today, one that probably everyone in this room struggles with, one that is in my back pocket. This thing brings so much junk into my house, and it makes me angry enough to flip tables, how I relate to it. So I want to help everyone focus a bit. I'm just going to grab this basket. If you guys could just pass this along, it'll take a minute. Just put up with me. Get that? Any volunteers? Thanks, Andre. Oh, yours looks new. Thank you. Who's feeling a bit anxious? Oh, there's some excited volunteers. Yeah, okay, I'll take yours. Thank you. But if I'm not wrong, if you take a minute, probably some of you are starting to feel a bit anxious. Probably the people in the back who were doom scrolling while I was talking. The people I saw stand up just a little bit. Maybe if I go to the toilet now, she won't notice I've got my phone on me. Because we're addicted, right? Let's just put it out there. I'm addicted. Those things are so addictive. Those miniature marketplaces, those free access points to every seller in the whole world. Do you know that the software that designs those things is literally called captology? The principle behind the technology. The idea that was come up with in a university where they designed it, captology, it stands for computers as persuasive technology. And it was all about how do we purposely manipulate people, how do we harvest their time and force them to spend it more on useless junk, get stuck at the front of the temple and never make it inside. Jesus cleared the temple because he believed that God was waiting inside on the threshold to refill the house. He is actually here tonight. He's here tonight and he wants to help us clear out distractions, clear out the marketplace to make space so we can freely and joyfully experience what he has for us. Now, before you worry, I'm not a tech-free human. I'm not suggesting we all get rid of our phones, but I am suggesting we need to put them where they belong, outside the temple, outside the sacred spaces in our life, outside our family space. We need to make and hold space for God's presence. You know, I have trauma from adding up how many screen time hours I have. I remember, I don't know if you've ever done that, opened your Apple iPhone screen time or nearly opened it and then thought, I probably know how bad it is. I've done that. I realized at some point my average was about 3 hours a day. That sounds horrible to say out loud, but it sounds way worse when you times it by the 10 years I'd been doing that. That's 10,000 hours. That's 684 days I spent on my phone. That's 137 working weeks. That's enough time. I could have learnt classical piano to grade 8. I could have completed a degree and a PhD, but I spent that time doom scrolling. Good decisions, 42-year-old Madeleine. These things are cluttering our life up and pushing our joy and our peace and contentment to one side. Ben Windle was here recently and he said, committed, engaged Christians read the Bible on average about 4 minutes a day. Multiply that stat out to 10 years and do you know what you get? 242 hours. That's a flex, right? Till you put it next to the 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours? Why are we doing it? Why aren't we angry enough that we're raging around this world, demanding that we change this? Let's clear house, church, and let's do it now. I'm seriously angry. And I hope you're angry too. And I want you to be angry. I want you to platter whip and I want you to rage and fight until you find a way to live freedom with the presence of God in your heart, because it's possible. So here's a couple of practices me and my husband Steve are experimenting on. If I'm honest, they're out of desperation. But you can clear house. You can get tech under control because you can take that space back from the enemy in the marketplace, because the God that you serve is greater than he who's in the world. These things don't belong in the temple. They don't belong in our bedrooms. They don't belong in our family life, because just like pigeons in the church, they leave stuff everywhere. And you might want a silver bullet like I do, right? Wouldn't you like it if we could just stop using them? But I know myself, I need my phone to work out how to get home tonight. I need it to pay for the ice creams that I'll bribe my kids with for coming to church. Technology is embedded in our life, so there has to be a way that we can live with it victoriously. So here's my tactics. 1, get it out of your bedroom. Steve and I decided we were going to make space for rest. And I can hear some of you immediately saying, but I need an alarm clock. Guess what we did? We bought an alarm clock. I know, right? Big brains in my house. But my sleep improved immediately. The first thing I reach for in the morning isn't my phone, because I actually have space to decide. There's not algorithms and notifications making me anxious about all the things I'm not going to get done today. There's space for me to reach out and connect with God. That was great, and we did that for a while, and it was sort of successful. And then we realized we need to go a bit more hardcore. So we put it on the dock. We needed spaces in our house and in our life that were phone-free and protected. We did the screen time and all that thing, but the biggest change in our life actually came when we gave them their own little home to live in our house, not in our pockets. And we've been doing that for more than 6 months, and just getting it out of our hands has had immediate benefits. There was something that shifted in us. In fact, immediately we had more time for each other. Steve reckoned just having the jitters out of his phone, he had more energy to help around the house. He said he did twice as much housework. He went right from 5 minutes a day to 10 minutes. It was a miracle. He does more than that. And we still answered texts and calls, but we did it on our terms, because it wasn't just immediately demanding our attention every 10 seconds. And you know what's really interesting? I started to really feel like I was listening to and being listened to by the people in my home. Do you know, the statistics actually show, the research actually shows that if there's even a phone on the table between you and somebody else, you assume they're not listening to you. Because you know they're subject to a better offer or a louder notification. Put them away. Ultimately, that wasn't even harsh enough for us, because it would always drift back, right? You'd get a notification and it'd go back in the pocket. So we kicked it out of home. We made a rule that when we're at home, our phones live in the garage. They have their own little bed. There they are. It's never that neat. It was only that neat for this photo. I feel like I have to confess that. But they live in this place in the garage, because we realized all the things that we defended needing them for, most of them happened outside the house. Maps, photos, payments, actually everything else we could do without in our home, in our sacred space. And this made a bigger difference than anything. But I still find days when I find it in my pocket. I feel like Frodo in that scene in Lord of the Rings when Gandalf's like, where's the ring? And he's like, it's in the box. Wait, no, it's here in my pocket. My precious. But in those moments, I notice myself, I notice the fog coming back down on me. I notice the cluttered brain, and it makes me want to crack the whip again and get that thing out of my life, that slimy, seductive, manipulative, captology-based piece of rubbish. Sorry, pet peeve. And one more thing made this possible. We brought back the home phone. Only half of the audience are excited. The other half of you don't know what that is. But in the old days, we used to have phones connected to a cord to the wall. So we bought this one. Isn't it pretty? It's awful, isn't it? But it's fantastic because it Bluetooth connects to our phones when we get home. We put them on the dock and then that thing rings if you call me. Most people don't call you, so it's fine. But if they do, I'm available. And if you need me after hours, feel free to ring. And I may or may not answer. I might be out practicing cracking my whip. You know, most of us are aware that we're addicted, but we're not really willing to do anything about it. Can I encourage you? Do something about it. It's so worth it. And the space I've retaken in my temple and in my life is precious. Crack the whip, get it out of your bedroom, put it on a dock, kick it out of home, bring back the home phone. Get mad like Jesus did about the space being stolen from you in the temple. You know, it makes me think Jesus was never really mad about what was in the temple. He wasn't mad about the pigeons. He doesn't have a pet hatred of that particular bird. He's mad that there's stuff getting in the road of his ability to bless us. He's mad that there's clutter in the temple that's taking the space of the words of life he wants to speak into that. When we say we want you here, do we want him here enough that we'll kick out the things that are stealing his space? Do we really want him here? I do. And I actually really want that for you guys. It's changed my devotional life in this year. I actually feel closer to God. I feel like I can hear his voice in a way I haven't since I was a very baby Christian, back before the smartphone was a thing. And I got to thinking, when we position ourselves for presence, when we make space, God always shows up. He always shows up. Do you know why? Because he was always there already, waiting. Let's go back to the story for a second. After Jesus cuts loose, after he drives out the cattle and the sheep and the doves, after he flips some tables, what's left in the temple? He is. Jesus is still here, waiting for you to make more space for him. The ever-present, eternal, all-knowing God lives in you when you've accepted him in your life. That blows my mind. Jesus clears house to refill the temple with himself. And I'm asking Jesus to teach me how to pray. Because when he came back into the temple, he said, my house is a temple of prayer, and you've made it a den of robbers. Can we retake the house and make it a place of prayer? Can we speak to God in our inmost person? I'm asking him to teach me that. I love that the disciples are like, teach us how to pray. It's okay, we can ask that too, right? Because I've been a Christian 20 years and I reckon more than anything I hear people say, I don't know how to pray. Me neither. Because we're talking to the God of the universe. It's probably okay for us to be a bit overwhelmed. But prayer isn't talking to a God who's out there, a God who's in a temple that we have to turn up in a right attitude to visit. Prayer is talking to a God who's already come to live in our hearts. I love this quote by a guy called Theophan the Recluse. He was a Russian mystic. I feel like you have to have a name like that to be a Russian mystic. And he said, to pray is to descend with the mind into the heart and there to stand before the face of the Lord, ever present, all seeing within you. To pray is to descend with the mind into the place of presence that was in you all along. If you've received Jesus, he lives in your heart. And when you pray, you find him in that temple. One little way I've been learning to do this is a thing called a breath prayer. It's something that the Desert Fathers, guys who rejected society, who saw society was ruining Christians and left, went out into the desert to try and work out how to live devoted lives. And they worked out this thing called the breath prayer. And it's just this. It's exhaling the lies. It's as you breathe out, it's saying, God, I'm tempted to believe that I'm a failure. God, I'm tempted to believe that no one will ever love me. God, I'm tempted to believe that trauma is all there is for me. And then it's breathing in the truth. I am loved. I am accepted. The God of the universe is inside me because he loves me so much that he's come to dwell with me and reveal himself to me day on day. That's it. That's prayer. That's making space to talk to the God who's waiting to talk to you, who's sitting at the door, at the threshold of your heart, waiting for you to crack the whip, get the stuff out of the road and just sit with him. He stands at the door of our heart and knocks. In Revelations it says, Jesus says, behold, I stand at the door and I knock. If anyone opens that door, I will come in and meet with him. I'll give you an opportunity in a minute. If this is something you haven't experienced, it's the most earth-shattering, life-changing, miraculous act you can ever do, is to open the door of your heart and say, God, with all the mess that I know is in here, please come in. And he will. He's here at the threshold of all of our doors to our lives tonight. He sees all our mistakes, all our pain. But he's not angry about that. He just wants to make more space for us to receive more of his Spirit. He just wants to make more space because he knows how good life is when we experience him in fullness. Can you wrap your head around that? I still keep expecting Jesus to turn up with a whip and tell me how disappointed he is in me. I still feel like that because that's what the world and the enemy want us to believe. But can I promise you, he's never turning up to speak that to you. He's only turning up to speak life to you. He's only cracking a whip because he's so mad that you don't see yourself how he sees you as a child of the Most High God, seated with him in heavenly places, adopted with purpose and passion. If I had some more tables to flip, I would. And I hope that you go home tonight convinced that nothing is worth getting in the road of your God. Nothing is worth wasting your life on. And if you've wasted as much time as me, you probably haven't. You can still get it back. I love, there's this verse in the Old Testament that says, the years that the locusts have stolen, God will restore. Even if everything is in shreds and tatters, God can give you a bumper crop of life and purpose and vision and passion today. Why don't we shut our eyes? If you're here tonight and you've never experienced that Jesus, he's knocking. If you want to experience freedom, if you want to experience life that comes from welcoming the King of Heaven into your heart, why don't you put your hand up and say, come in, Jesus, right now, with every eye closed. Why don't you say, me, Jesus, I want that freedom. That's awesome. That's awesome. Why don't we pray with these people, hey? Jesus, thank you that you are coming in right now. I'm sorry for all of the things I've done. I'm sorry for living my own way. I turn away from that life. Clear the temple, Jesus. Clear away all the distractions and all the trash. Thank you for your presence in me, Jesus. And if you're looking down the barrel of 10,000 hours, or even 1,000 that you didn't want to spend, if you're looking at some pigeons right now and you want freedom, let me pray for you too. God, thank you that we can never be too far. We can never waste too much time. We can never scroll past you far enough. God, thank you that you're within us. Remind every person who knows you here that you are in them in fullness. The fullness of the deity dwells in them right now. I pray that they would feel you busting out of their skin right now. Your goodness, your joy, your peace, your patience, your kindness, your goodness busting out of them, that they would be inspired to do good things, that the joy of the Lord would be so strong in them, so wild and free in them, that it would bust out all this other refuse, God, that it would clear the temple. Thank you that by the power of your Holy Spirit, you make that possible. Amen.